Welcome to another episode of The Latest with Maya. Today, I am so happy to have a conversation with musicians Autumn Brand and Daniel Cook, also known as the 180s. Thank you so much for being on my show. I am so excited to be talking with you.
Thank you, Maya.
Yeah, thank you. We're really happy to be here. We really appreciate you having us.
Course. Yeah, so let's get started. Do you have a specific songwriting process or any rituals you do before writing a song?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, I think, it varies from time to time, I think. And I know each of us are different, but I think usually it starts with, a melody idea might pop in our head or a chord progression. We sit down and just kind of start experimenting. And then, somewhere in the process, it takes shape. There starts to be an arrangement. There starts to be a theme or a line or two that starts to just kind of like appear, right? And then you kind of start just right around that idea. Um, so there have been other times I think where, like for instance, the song "Minefields" was one where we're like, "Hey, why don't we try?" Um, Basically, one of us writes the words, and then the other of us, like having no idea what was in the other person's head, like musically, we'll take it and then turn it into a song, right? And that's what we did. Is like I wrote some lyrics for "Minefields," and then Autumn uh, shaped it into a song with melody and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
almost like taking poetry in a way, which is the way I saw it, and just putting it to music, which is actually what a lot of old like composers used to do. They used to take like a popular poem and turn it into like a symphony or something. So not saying that it's not that grandiose, but that was a really cool. We should do that again.
Yeah,
That was a good way of doing that,
yeah.
actually.
I mean, there were a couple instances of like where we just would like we in fact the song "No King" started as a big production before there was even really a song. We are like, hey, let's try doing a disco uh, tune, and we literally just studied some disco music for like a day or so, and then started seeing what we could do just as far as a beat and a bass line and a melody, a little riff. We listened to some ABBA, listened to some Bee Gees, um, and we start this huge grand production without even knowing what the song was about yet, or even knowing what the melody was. We had a whole nother melody to the song to start with, and it was really kind of late in the process, like after many hours of production, before we even had a song written, right? Before we even had lyrics, and um, then in other cases like Dead Starlight, we had a song, but for production, we just wanted to like, hey, what happens if we write this as a string? Like you were just talking about orchestral stuff. Like
Hmm.
if we take this and turn it into a strings orchestration, like and then work from there, what happens?
Yeah.
But yeah,
There's like every which way you could possibly think of to start the writing process. And sometimes, we'll have lulls where we don't really write a lot. And other times it'll be, there's all these song ideas coming to us. Like I know for me personally, there's not a ritual per se, but like I know that when I'm driving, a lot of song ideas will come to me. And I don't know if it's like something I'm listening to at the time, or so I would say like a ritual might be like driving.
yeah. Probably both of us have a lot of voice memos on our phones that we probably wouldn't want anybody to hear, where we're just driving along and have some song idea and start singing it.
You're like
But
1, 2, 3, 4, do 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 do. This will
yeah,
be in the key of C minor.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Is there a song that you are currently obsessed with?
Ooh,
Mm,
that's some good questions, Maya.
yeah. That's
That's it.
Yeah.
I feel like whenever people ask us about like songs,
Yeah, we're both really bad at calling up like
yeah,
names of like if you ask us influences, we're like, yeah, I know we got tons of them. Hold on, give me a second.
yeah,
Like I'm
yeah.
literally pulling up my Spotify right now to see like
What have we been listening
like
to?
what do we listen to go run. I mean, I have like Chris Stapleton on here, um, Tony Bradshaw. Um, yeah, I mean, let's see. Oh yeah, War on Drugs has been one I've been listening to a lot. Um, they're
Yeah.
yeah, they're
We also recently like I mean, we've known about Lainey Wilson for a long time. And actually, there's a guy we know in Raleigh who does a lot of like management. He used to he used to do some management with Lainey Wilson. So we've known about her for a long time, but we didn't know like how much she had blown up. And we're like, wait, Lainey Wilson, she's like a huge deal now. I'm sure you know who Lainey Wilson is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're like, let's go listen to some of her old tunes, and we kind of had like a night where we just like listened to Lainey Wilson on like just really great, great songwriter, great vocalist. Yeah.
It's really kind of all over the map. And once in a while, there will be a kind of a new obsession. I know when we were doing Minefields, we were really into like the Minefields album. We were, well, it was inspired by all kinds of stuff, but we were like kind of taking some deep dives into different production work we liked. Sean Everett, who's done a lot of like War on Drugs and Alabama Shakes. Um, and then like, uh, I know like I was pretty obsessed with like Pony Bradshaw's
Sudden Opera.
Sudden Opera album. And at that time, like nobody really like there wasn't a lot of people who knew about Pony Bradshaw. He's an artist on Rounder Records, had just been signed. But I think that's like one of like best kept secrets. It's not so much a secret anymore, but like that from a production standpoint, if we want to use the word likely obsessed, I think we definitely studied, the songcraft and production there. So.
I would say Pony Bradshaw is like the one that record, Sudden Opera, is like the record that we both have just completely obsessed over.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, you should check it out if you haven't heard it. It's beautiful.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely will. Thank you for that. Yeah, I recently have been obsessed with Ben Barnes' debut album. It's called Where the Light Gets In, and I am obsessed with that. And then one of my favorite singers, his name is Asher Angel, and he recently came out with a new song that I've had on repeat.
Cool. Asher Angel and you said Brian Barnes, is that right?
Ben Barnes.
Ben Barnes. A lot of alliteration.
Yeah.
Ben Barnes, Asher Angel. Yeah. Cool. I know there's a lot of new artists there's so many artists that are like coming up right now. And I teach like violins. I have like a songwriting student too, but she's a freshman in high school, and she's always giving me all these like new names of artists. I can't keep track. There's so many new artists that are coming out, and they're just so amazing. Such great vocalists coming out, and such great songwriters. Like there's a lot of really good music.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Is there an artist or song that you consider to be the gold standard when it comes to songwriting and storytelling?
I mean, songwriting and storytelling, I would definitely, I would just point right back to Pony Bradshaw. I mean, I feel like his songwriting is so, like he takes a lot from literature and puts it in his songs and makes it feel different and special and unique. And I really appreciate that. I certainly don't tend to write in that style. I think you do a little bit more. Like you're very much a storytelling type songwriter.
Sometimes I think, but I know like I'm thinking back to sort of the beginning of like when I started creating music, because I think that's when a lot of the formation happens around sort of, I guess, your artistic identity, for lack of a less lofty way of putting it. But like I know Bob Dylan was a big influence, and of course I think a lot of people consider him a gold standard. And but as far as a song, like it's hard to pull one up. Like
I also think of Casey Musgraves. Like we talk about her songwriting a lot because oh my gosh, she had this one song like way back in the day that was it was kind of like a kitschy, like kind of funny song. I can't think of the name of it. It was like one of her first ones, but something about I don't even, it was like all these Southernisms in her song. And like the way she put the words together was really clever. It was like something about biscuits and gravy or something like that.
Yeah,
I can't think of it.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, I can't think of the song, but like her songwriting in general, like even that song, I think it's called like Merry-Go-Round. Like just the way her lyrics are so like when you listen to them, you're like, oh, it's so simple, of course, but it's so difficult to write in such a simple way that everyone can kind of relate to.
Yeah.
And she just the way she works her words is like
she has a lot of co-writers on those songs too, like especially on Golden Hour. That I'm glad you said that because that kind of reminded me of that's talking about Gold Standard. Like I know that was album of the year in like 2019. And that was another one that was a big influence on both our production and songwriting for the Minefields album, and even the stuff that we're doing now. Like all the songs on that record are just like so beautifully written and produced. I mean, Love Is a Wild Thing, Slow Burn,
Rainbows.
Everything is just perfection as far as I'm concerned. I mean, and like there's like a certain distilled simplicity I think that you go for with that kind of songwriting where it feels effortless, right? When you listen to it, it feels like it just must have been, just revealed itself without any toiling or anything like that. And a lot of times it takes a lot of work to arrive at that simplicity. You might have a few hundred tracks of audio in the production, right, that you kind of carve into this, you kind of sculpt into something, right, that's palatable and that's beautiful. And that whole album, and I think recently Love Is a Wild Thing was one that I was maybe obsessed with a little bit because and of course we were lucky enough to have some people from that record play on ours too.
True.
That was definitely intentional, but a lot of influence. A lot of times it's hard for us to remember, like we'll have afterthoughts, but
yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I love writing lyrics, and so it's always fun to hear other people's inspirations, and
yeah.
So is there a song of yours that is your favorite to perform?
Let's see.
Okay. I'll just go first. So I'll let you think. We have like basically two kind of iterations of our band. We have the duo, which we do like an acoustic form, just the two of us.
Yeah.
Like two vocals, violin, guitar, acoustic guitar. And then we have like we've done a full band before, which is like seven or eight people or something, and like backing tracks and like the full big thing. So I'd say that it like differs. Probably the song that I like to perform as a duo is our song called Two Jet Planes. I just feel like it's I don't know, that song just feels kind of fun to me, and I think it works well as a duo, and I feel like it's in a comfortable vocal range for me, and like it just there's some like funky little like violin things that I do in it that feel just fun. And I'll say for myself personally, I think I really like performing our song Fever Dream with like the full band, because it's a little bit more like jammy, like we have people take turns doing solos in the song, and it's like I don't know, that just feels like we're sharing an experience with the band and the audience in that sense. So
I think I agree. It has a lot to do with the environment. And I know that like No King is a really fun one to play when you have the full band and all the instrumentation and all the energy. But it's kind of like can be a little awkward to play as a two-piece.
Yeah, it's hard to play disco on an acoustic guitar.
You have these these performances, like we've played with So Far Sounds, for example, like where you have a pretty smaller audience, maybe 50 to 150 people, something like that, and they're sitting on the floor, and there might be candles around. It's more intimate, and it's more of a kind of a storytelling, um, a little bit more of an intimate setting. And I think that some of our, you know, the slower, more emotional kind of tunes like Dead Starlight and Hold Back the Tide play pretty well in those situations.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I'd agree.
Cool. Um, so who has had the biggest impact on you professionally?
Ooh. Wow, you ask some tough questions. Huh. Who has had the biggest impact on us professionally? Oh man. I mean, what
um,
do you think about Steve Everett? Like,
yeah,
usually change the way that we think about.
Sean Everett, you mean? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's hard to say one right for your whole life.
yeah.
Like if I go back to like you know the early days, like when I was into like grunge, right, or when like um, you know all those like grunge and post grunge bands were. I was really into Our Lady Peace for a while. Like that was I lived and breathed Our Lady Peace. Before that, it was like classic rock, like when you're first learning to play the guitar. So it was like Leonard Skinner, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, and more recently, as we've kind of the progression to more Americana roots-based music, it's been like Sturgill Simpson um, and artists like that, like some of that we've already mentioned, like
Oh
Casey
yeah.
Musgraves. But I think you're right that as far as like more in our sort of current era of music making, like John John Everett, and he's more of a producer. Um, he just approaches it with such artistry and everything's on the table. That sort of like divergent thinking, right? That you start a project with is like every idea is fair game. Throw it all at the wall. Do weird things, right? Keep take a sound that you might get or a riff you might have, and then do something downright silly with it. Play it through a speaker into the room and capture it with another microphone. Then dub that to a cassette tape, and then bring it back in and slow it up, slow it down, and then run it through a pedal. And like, what kind of weird things can you do like that? There was one thing that uh, he did that we ended up using a lot. He we watched these like basically instructional videos where he was showing his process
Hmm.
on this site called Mix with the Masters. Um, and he was like we were using some synth based sounds, a lot of synth sounds on the Minefields album, and he was saying like maybe in lieu of a synth, maybe just take like record a bunch of noise, right? That has a bunch of different sort of pitch and tonal qualities to it that are maybe decipherable enough to where when you run it through a pitch correction, right, software or plugin or pedal, that you can actually separate those tones out and then move them so that they form notes and that they can then be shaped into chords. So you can take the sound of a trash can that you're banging on, mixed with the sound of the microwave, mixed with the sound of just some nonsensical music that we might lay down, and then you take that and you turn it into a synth, basically what sounds like a synthesizer.
Yeah, like an instrument.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, look, that's just one sort of anecdote, I guess, to say that there are many things like that that we gleaned from his work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd say that's probably right.
Yeah. And then, I mean, also like, I'll say like my middle school orchestra director, like without her and her influence on like just keeping me like pushing me to continue like playing my instrument and like pushing me to write music, I don't I don't know that I would have continued in the way that I did. So, and then like my mom and she's always
Yeah, I mean, far enough. I mean, you're right. I mean, that's like if you want to say the most significant. I think it's the earliest, right? It's like what drove you to do the thing. I know with me, I was really into basketball, and I was on the court one day outside playing with a bunch of friends in the neighborhood pickup game, and this guy came out on the porch and started playing the Spanish guitar, and I walked off the court and went and watched him, and I went home after that and dug an old toy guitar out of the attic, and have been obsessed with music ever since that day. So
yeah.
So Julio, that was his name.
Yeah,
I don't
Julio.
remember anything else about him, but that was he was playing Nirvana on a nylon string guitar and a sort of Spanish guitar.
Yeah, it's almost like everyone that you ever come in contact with that has something to do with music, or you've met through music or whatever. I feel like they all have had a profound and professional impact on like our continuation of being musicians, I guess. Yeah. The butterfly effect, right?
I was just thinking, yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. So who has had the biggest impact on you as a person?
Ooh.
These are questions I feel like you need to. I'm going to go have to think on this and write an essay for myself so that I know these things. I mean, obviously, parents is kind of the default answer because I think that's just generally true of most people. Certainly, in my case, my parents were supportive and.
I mean, same. My mom, she always told me you could do anything you want to do. It doesn't have to be just one thing. She's always pushed me to do what I love to do. And, yeah, I mean, my mom.
Yeah, I know, and also, trying to think of bits of wisdom that have proven true that are particularly important as I've gotten older, things that, like my grandmother said one time, you can do everything you want to in life, just not at the same time, not all at the same time. And I think that's just, something that I can stand to live by for sure, because a lot of times you get this analysis paralysis or just bottlenecks that happen because you're trying to push too much through, and so nothing happens. Or you're striving for perfection on all of these different things, so nothing ever gets finished. And so, yeah, sometimes, I'd love to write a novel someday. I've have scribblings that I've different times where I thought it was going to be that, and maybe it will be someday. But you can't necessarily do that and run a business and have a job and play in a touring band and make albums at the same time. Maybe you can. I can't. Yeah, my parents, grandparents, family.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I can barely do two things at once, so that would be.
Well, it seems like you're doing a wonderful thing with your live podcast here. So, yeah.
In your trip. I wanted to say that too. Is just your story is really compelling, and we just learned about what you're doing, and it's obviously you've attracted some extraordinary people, extraordinarily talented people, and it's very cool. And I know the long form, taken off with a lot of people. I started watching the one with Kevin Bacon a little while ago and was into it, but we'll check back on that when we're done here. But yeah, very cool what you're doing.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. So if you had a warning label, what would yours say?
Whoa, that is such an interesting questions.
Yeah. I heard, yeah.
Oh man.
I love that.
Yeah, that's good.
We'll be talking about this later. We're going to be like, oh, what's that? What's the warning label? We're going to be just working on something. Be like, that would have been the warning label. I know that we're both total spazzes. You said that a little while ago.
I was thinking that we'll spaz out at any moment.
Yeah. We okay. Well, here's one a little more specific and pertinent to the band. Like part of the reason we called the band the 180s is because we are constantly changing our minds or indecisive. In fact, at that time we were indecisive about what we wanted to call the band. We had like all these different names and different even types of music. Like we had like, you know, this sounds like it would be a different album than this,
Oh yeah,
than
like
this, or
80s music and electronic music and country music
right.
and pop music and punk music.
Yeah,
We're like, what are we?
yeah. So we tried to put it together, but yeah, yeah. I guess that's not none of that's really worded like a warning label, but there's something in there. Like
Yeah.
there's definitely some there's definitely a warning to be there's definitely a warning to
May change their minds at any point
there
in
you go.
time.
Yeah.
That's not much of a warning, but yeah, well, I guarantee we're going to be thinking about this for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, we should have said that. We should have said that.
Right. Warning, tell us to meet 15 minutes before it really is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Warning may have Daniel singing 2 octaves above me in any given part of the song.
Right.
Yeah.
My Bee Gees impression.
Yeah. I don't know.
I love that. I like that warning label. So, what has been the biggest obstacle you've overcome?
Like as a band or
Yeah, like either as a band or like in your personal life.
Well, I know that like thinking about the sort of a musical progression and trajectory we've been on, I know that um, we've both played in different bands over the years, and we were in another band before this one called New Reveille. Um, that I gotten signed to a label for a while and was doing really well. It's like very much in the early stages of sort of liftoff. Um, we were just finished the album. The campaign was being pushed along by the label, and then they went bankrupt. Um, sort of suddenly and unexpected to us, and we were thrown for a loop. Um, we once that their company dissolved, we had to, there was an opportunity to keep working with the same group of people, sort of informally, and we decided to go out on our own though, and we did that for a while, um, working with the publicist and trying to do, and the agency to book us, and um, it was working, but it was a struggle. And then of course the pandemic hit. Um, there's some personal life things in there too, like you know, divorce stuff like that, and you know, picking up picking up pieces, etc.
yeah.
And basically, I know during the pandemic, which obviously everybody had to deal with a lot of the same limitations during that. Like, so we decided to make an album during the pandemic just to make something out of that, try to make a positive out of that, being stranded essentially. I don't know. That's the sort of turbulence of trying to keep pushing after you had this sort of bit of success, and it fall through. It's been a challenge. But
Yeah, I would say definitely as a band that's where my head went. Like because New Reveille was doing really well, and I mean we were like in Rolling Stone, like top 10 artists you need to know, and like we were going to Nashville and like playing in like some of the nicest studios like in the world. Is that
yeah, no, definitely
correct to say?
yeah,
And like playing big shows, and like selling out some shows. And it's like you feel like you're on this trajectory and you're like, oh man, it's like it's happening like all our dreams are coming true, basically, you know, and then yeah, that label dissolving like really just like hit us like a ton of bricks, and the band really just kind of slowly fell apart after that, and I think that was like really really difficult because it's almost like you can see where you're going, and then that's just stopped all of a sudden, and that was really really tough, but um, you know, we built some really strong relationships through all of that, and yeah, like our publicist Julie,
Mhm.
like she's, you know, she's great, and we met her through that. So no matter what, I mean, even though there's been trials and
Yeah.
tribulations, and we've gone through a lot, like with music and everything, and um,
Yeah,
there's you know there's positives to glean from all that,
definitely.
and yeah, it's been really fun and interesting, like going from New Reveille, which was like very different from what we do, and like sort of finding our footing together, like out of sort of the demise
Yeah,
of that process. So
yeah.
yeah,
And even though, and, you know, I think about this as we talk about it as a negative, I mean, most of it was like just really cool experiences,
yeah,
um, and none of this is like putting any blame on the label or their financial
yeah,
struggles or anything like that, because
yeah,
really they afforded us some opportunities that
yeah,
we would have never otherwise had.
yeah.
And you mentioned the relationships, and like,
Hmm.
I think that's spot on, because I mean, these people that we have at our disposal now are people
Yeah,
that you know are like upper tier, like Nashville session players,
yeah,
you know, and we can just call them and ask them to play on something if we need a track from them, or you know, we need a drummer. We've got plenty of options for really like um, upper tier musicians for
yeah,
one. Yeah,
yeah,
and they're just cool people too.
yeah. So yeah,
And we ramble a lot. That's another warning.
yeah, yeah.
Another warning label.
We'll ramble.
I love that. Yeah, I love that second warning label. and, and I'm sorry you went through that. And that is difficult, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah, it's all right. I mean, it was tough and a little bit heartbreaking, but you know, it wasn't the end of the world.
In the great scheme, it's like
And we had like, I mean, man, some of the experiences we had, like I know you'll never forget. I'll never forget. Like just playing with some of these musicians in the studio, being in these studios, like
oh yeah,
just I mean, some of the coolest experiences to this day that I've ever
yeah,
came out of that, and it's you know it's like that saying, like it's better to have loved than to, what's that saying? I'm so bad at saying.
I knew as soon as here's that saying that. I knew it was
What's
gonna
that
be that.
saying?
It's this,
What is that saying? Better
to
to have loved and lost
than to have not loved at
than
all.
to have never loved at all.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
Yeah,
better to have.
I think it's the saying.
Yeah, I think that's the saying. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we think of that experience like it's better to have had that experience and lost it than to never have had that experience at all.
Yeah.
So
And this whole thing was born out of its
yeah,
collapse, right? And yeah, so
yeah,
Yeah. So I am pop culture obsessed and go in stages of shows that I cannot stop watching. Is there a show that you are currently obsessed with?
yeah. Well, yeah.
we were watching before that.
Oh yeah.
So like we
We're
sometimes we binge stuff.
yeah, no, we're currently binging Dexter, which is like, you know, an older show,
Yeah.
2013, but that's one that we're currently binging. But I mean, what else? It's I mean, we got really into like the Menendez brothers.
True crime.
I don't know if you've seen that lately. Yeah, like the true crime stuff.
I know that I haven't watched it.
Severance is about to come back.
Oh yeah.
You know, I know Dexter is like a dated thing. That's been done for like she said pop culture back.
I know. Well, it was really popular. No, there's actually a new
Yeah.
Dexter like thing out called Original Sin now.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? Or
I haven't. No,
Yeah.
okay, thank you. Well, I don't always like I know what it's about, and so I don't always love those kinds of shows that because they're so creepy, and I
Give us some bad dreams. I don't know why we keep watching that
I
stuff,
know.
but
Yeah, it's we're just really into like
yeah,
really
you just listen to a bunch of like really
really dark
murdery
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah. Oh, okay. There's another show that I really love called Never Have I Ever. It's about like this
oh
Indian
yeah.
girl called Davy. Or I love. I mean, I'm really into like. I personally love like high school drama.
Mm,
That's my guilty pleasure.
Yeah. Time is hands down 6 feet under, and I've watched the whole thing like 3 times. Um, and it just shows like Breaking Bad, Ozark, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think like I have one of those right now that's like up there with those, right?
Yeah.
I think that's like just passively watching Dexter again. It's
Yeah.
like just kind of
Yeah.
probably should be writing music instead of doing that.
True.
Yeah.
Fiona Apple. Okay, she put out, like back in the '90s or whatever. I think it was the '90s. Yeah, Criminal, which is like that was like her big hit, and then she put out the album. She took a break from songwriting, putting any music out for like 6 years or. Don't quote me on that. It's a long time.
It might have been longer than that.
It might have been longer. It might have been shorter. And then when she finally like came back into the view of the media and whatever, people were asking her, "Well, what have you been doing for the past 6 years?" And she was like, "I just been watching TV." That's literally what her answer was. Something along. But she was like, "I just needed to chill and like take a break from music for a while, and I just like watch TV." It's really funny.
And I know that I've read that she was also an INFP personality type.
Oh yeah,
both of us are that.
Yeah,
too,
we're both
so.
INFP personality types, and so is Fiona Apples. We're like, well, if Fiona Apple can do it,
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So what small things bring you joy on a daily basis?
cats, 100% cats,
Yeah.
all day, cats, kitty cats.
Those are all. That's all.
Those
three
are all
of
three
hers,
things.
All three things
Cats.
for her. And there are 3 cats here. I'm surprised none of them have made an appearance yet.
It's weird. It's weird.
Another warning label. There's a lot of cat hair in here. If you're allergic, you can't come within the place. But yeah, for me, I mean, I think being able to like, work out or get some sunshine, get some air, go for a walk, coffee. Sometimes I go through a phase where I drink way too much of it, but I like good coffee and also cats.
Cats.
And, yeah, I mean, getting to be creative. When I'm not working on music, I work in video production and any excuse to be creative or active brings me joy. There's one.
Cat.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted. Bo interrupted you, actually.
Oh yeah, that always takes precedence whatever I'm saying. So it's cool.
I love those. Yeah. Yeah. So, how do you keep yourself motivated to create, even on days when you aren't fully feeling it?
Ooh, I think I'm not sure about you, but I think the word motivation is like I really don't like that word because I feel like if I only did something when I felt motivated to, I would never do anything. So even like something simple like going to the gym, like I think we both had this saying, like
Yeah.
if we're thinking about going to the gym and we're like, I don't want to go to the gym, then we're like, oh, you're going. We kind of have to like parent ourselves in that way. And So I think when it comes to being creative and songwriting, like I, for whatever reason, have um, sometimes I'll get nervous to create because I'm scared of what's gonna like what I'm gonna create. It's not gonna be good enough, and it's just I'm gonna get so down on myself. But I think instead of feeling like I need the motivation to do it, it's more like I just need to do it. And maybe in the process of sitting down and just doing it, I'll start to feel motivated after I've already started. But having the motivation beforehand, that I feel like that rarely comes. It's more of a okay, I have to sit down and practice being creative right now, and maybe the motivation will come while I'm sitting there, but maybe it won't, but I'm going to do it anyways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think like a lot of times it's about discipline, and discipline sometimes means doing something in spite of not having the motivation to do it. It just um, a lot of times a lot of writers, whether it's novelists or otherwise, like they if you want to write, if you want to be a writer, then you write, right? It's not like you need to you have this sort of epiphany about what you need to write about. It's like no, you sit down, especially when you have nothing to say, and you start putting words on the page, and you make yourself do that for 10 minutes a day. Is it 5 hours a week? However it is you do it, like you just have to do it. And I say that, but I totally don't. I totally don't do that.
Yeah.
100% don't do any of this. Once in a while I do, but
Same. Same. It could happen. It could happen more.
yeah,
Definitely.
it should happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so what do you wish people better understood about you?
Whoa, that is a really question. Um,
Um,
I got something
it makes a
that
lot more sense in here than it does coming out of my mouth. That's what I say.
oh
Whatever it is, what are you going to say?
um well, just personally, I think um I don't know if there's something I wish people knew, like understood about me better, because it's not, hmm, girl, that is a tricky question. Uh, Oftentimes I think like what you, for me personally, like what I put out into the world is not necessarily what I'm feeling inside. And I feel like the music that we create sort of fits that better. Like it's almost easier to like be yourself when you're writing music than it is to be yourself when you're just like being social or interacting with people. So I don't know that that really answers your question, but
I mean, yeah, I think part of the motivating, there's lots of different reasons people create, and regardless of what it is they're doing, but there's a sort of wanting for human connection that might not be getting met via the bottlenecks of human interpersonal communication, right? It's like for everybody, it's the case that we have this like communication bottleneck. Like what is going on in our hearts and minds is like so much larger than what can be channeled out through our voice box and onto a page even. And so like there's a sort of madness that a lot of I think some of us have. Um, you know, I don't want to say feeling trapped, but there's something. Sometimes there's something in you you're trying to get out. Um, And I've watched videos of myself, probably watched this one and think the same thing where I'm like, what am I talking about? Like, I'm not making any sense. Like, I had these things, these things were firing off in my head. It made perfect sense. It was like, I saw it all. I could see I was drawing pictures in I was drawing constellations in the dots that were the stars in my brain. But what's coming out was just hit it, and like that is, and I realized that's kind of what everybody's doing. Um, and like all the time. But
yeah.
um,
Yeah, it is really hard to communicate your thoughts. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just really hard to make words make sense sometimes, and you really you feel it, but it's.
Yeah.
I'm really dumbing down what you just said because you said it so. You really did say that very eloquently. But yeah, I agree with what he
Yeah.
said.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely have those moments where I'll be talking to someone, I'll be telling them something, and they'll just be looking at me like totally confused, and I'm just like, well, it made sense in my head. So if you were in my head, you'd understand what. Yeah. So I can definitely relate to that. Yeah. Um, so I just have one final question for you. I love inspiring and motivational quotes. And this week, my favorite quotation is sometimes we try to hold on to someone who was only meant to be a chapter in our story. Let go. The rest of your book is waiting to be written. Is there a quotation that has inspired you lately?
Wow, that is a. I've heard that quote before. That's a really beautiful quote. Um, quote that's inspired me. Do you have any you can think of?
Um, yeah, again, this is another case of like we rarely have things just really queued up at the tip of our tongues. Another thing about both of us, but the only thing in my mind of recent times is something that my dad said. His name is Clyde, and he has all these there are all these different words and phrases that in sort of the lore of my family are we call Clydeisms. Um, and he jokingly recently said like he just wants on his gravestone he just wants it to say here lies Clyde, he tried. And if you know him and all the things that he's done in his life and just how just this you know he just worked on so many frontiers in his life and had so many jobs and uh, you know I don't know it what it says to me is in the end like it's really the best we can do, right? Here lies Clyde, he tried. That's the best that I could really say about myself in the final analysis if I live right. So if I think about life in those terms, like if you can just sum it up to, and there isn't one that really rhymes with my name, um, in the end, like you know, you can say I gave it the old try, then that must have done it right. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't,
No, that's. I kind of thought that you might say something that your dad, like a quote from your dad, because he has a lot of really good quotes. Some of them are a little inappropriate.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly can't. I'm a big. I love quotes. I'm very big on like motivational quotes, and I feel like my mom is sending me quotes all the time. And I like right now, I literally can't tell you. And if I did try to think of one of the quotes, I would totally botch it.
Yeah.
But
Man, it's so
yeah,
bad because like I've got to figure out a way of just like
remembering things.
I made a notes document on my phone recently. I just tried to pull it up and like I started putting down anything like hear a quote or read a quote that I just love. I started putting it in there. I have no idea what that note document is called. I'm never going to find it. So that's my entire life. That's why I can't find. I gave up on matching my socks. Like I can't find anything or remember anything. So um,
You tried, so
You try.
yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Um well, that was my final question for you. I have had the best time talking with you both. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you so
thank
much for
you,
having
man.
us. And by the way, you're just so great at this. I mean, I feel like you just make. I'm gonna speak for both of us. You just make us feel like very comfortable, and you're just really easy to talk to, and you're so sweet. And this was just really, really fun.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. Thank you. Um And I hope you both have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
You too, Maya.
Thank you. And that's a wrap on today's edition of The Latest with Maya.